Hi everyone, welcome to our podcast for Black Women Connect Vancouver, Girl You Know It. So I'm the founder of Black Women Connect Vancouver, which started in 2017. And Black Women Connect Vancouver is a collective of women who come to inspire, empower, and leverage our strengths and embrace our diverse experiences. It is a community where we can build meaningful relationships and celebrate the beauty of our Black womanhood. I hope that you enjoy it. Welcome everyone to Girl You Know It. Today's episode 3 is about reflections on 2020. And today we also have a special guest, Ruthie. And I can't say her last name, but she'll let you know and introduce you. I know, we've been friends for a long time. And I'm just at the point where I just can't say my friends' names and I'll just tell you.
You're like, okay.
Yes.
Ruthie, first name.
Yeah. Yes. So, go ahead.
I am Ruthie Unaegbu. It's very phonetic-ish, kind of. Like, yeah, it's pretty easy. Ruthie Unaegbu. I am a registered clinical counselor and supervisor, and I do other things on the side, including acting. I'm a doula. What else am I? Web design, fitness, and nutrition coach. So, yeah, thanks for having me, lady.
Yes, welcome. Yeah. We're excited to have you.
Absolutely.
So, let's start the conversation. Let's reflect on 2020. What do we feel 2020 has been? I would love to hear everyone's kind of
breathing. I'm like,
what
has it not been?
Like breathing in more, you're like, you can't even exhale.
Yeah.
What hasn't 2020 been?
Exactly. It's kind of that, like, once people even say 2020, you kind of get even, like, anxious. Like, you tighten up. Yeah. It's not even a relaxed feel. Right. No. Yeah, because we all went into it being, like, 2020, like, the year, like, that's, like, the round year of, like, next phase, my 2020 vision. Yes, like, all these people, you saw, like
this is our year. This is our year. Like, you know, big things like I'm going to travel the world. Yeah. You know, I just want to, like, have dreams that I want to pursue, want to, do these goals. And, of course, at the beginning of every year we have those. But 2020, because of the year of 2020, people were like, yeah, it's going to be great.
And it was also like the new decade. Like it felt like this fresh start for everybody who was like, okay, the past decade was trash.
Right. Yes.
Let's start again. Let's start afresh.
Even as you say it right now, I'm like, oh yeah, it was a new decade. But 2020 feels like the decade.
Yeah.
Like it really feels like we've been in it for because it's, let's say in terms of travel, there's like, pre-travel and after, like I actually traveled to to Hawaii and Virginia before all this happened.
Yeah, I did too. I went to London and Portugal, and I was like thinking, because they said that like the virus in general was actually happening a year before, and then it started spreading. So I'm like thinking, wow, like I probably was traveling with all these other people who probably did have it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was like February, March, but it feels like 3 years ago, like 10 years ago.
Yeah,
it definitely does.
It's so wild just what happened this year, And the fact that it's worldwide is, it makes you realize how small the world is. Mm-hmm. We think about like, people in other parts of the world and you don't think about them because perhaps they have different experiences and those kind of things, but everybody had this experience. Mm-hmm. And it brought us to realize, that as humans we're all the same. Mm-hmm. It affects all of us,
everybody.
Yeah.
Like, it's wild that, like, in our country, schools are shut down. Mm-hmm. You had to wear masks. Same as Australia. Mm-hmm. Schools are shut down. People have to wear masks.
Mm. Yeah, it's wild.
It's mind-boggling,
The biggest theme for me for 2020 is connection. And I don't think I've ever felt so connected in a good way, also in a very horrible way, to the rest of the world, because like we spoke about the explosion that happened in Beirut, like being able to see that firsthand so many times from so many different angles is amazing for getting information. And like if I was a journalist, but being just like a regular citizen and individual, it was so much. And then there's that, and then you swipe a little bit more, then there's somewhere else, and it's just like, I also feel like 2020 was probably, I like to describe it as a zit. And it was like a zit that was growing. And it's just like, it's pressing. And now the zit is exploded. But it's just like, it keeps coming out and it needs to be cleaned because now it's also gotten a bit infected. And so that's really how I feel about 2020.
Yeah. Wow.
So I'm out here looking for some doctors who can heal
Let's fix this. Let's fix it.
Lord, if you're the doctor, please, let's get it.
I like that. I like the thought of that because it is quite true. The things that usually happen in the world that we weren't aware of because the world didn't stop happened, and it opened people's eyes too, right? So the Beirut thing, the things that were happening, I guess Australia was before it, but like the world stopped, and then even in terms of Black Lives Matter, that's when people were just like, oh my gosh,
Yeah, because everybody was
Black
home.
people, yeah. And they're like, what, this is going on? I was like, what do you mean? Like, as Black people, we're just like, we've been telling you, right? But it did cause connection. It caused people to actually be more connected and see what other people are going through, because they had to stay at home and do nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It also got people joyful a bit. It was so fun seeing how other people are able to be the lightness in the world, and like doing the dancing challenges, and like even trying to do the Meg the Stallion challenge. I think I practiced for like 2 hours.
Yes.
And then at the end of it, I was like, oh, I need to record this. And I recorded it, and I literally just napped. I was like, this is a lot. But it was so much fun. And then people who watched it were like, oh my goodness, that's so much fun. So that, for me, has been great, seeing that kind of joy spiral. But I don't know, I feel kind of weird. I think whenever there's something really apparent, it also shows us what isn't apparent. So like with the re-uprising, or people finally figuring out what's happening to Black people, it's just like, first of all, it's a whole nother story. But like, but like, you know, that reawakening for that, and then having to kind of state like Black joy and like all these things, I still personally feel a little bit weird about what the pimples explosion has had us do, because now we need to name the things that we take pleasure in, to state that it's something that brings us pleasure, where before we could just be joyful and like not have to say, oh, this is Black joy, I'm reclaiming this, or I'm reclaiming that. It's such a heavy thing for me, like that language. It's
because we have to work. As Black people, always have to work, right? I think it's just kind of like you said, we just want to be and we just want to live, as opposed to just, work.
Yeah, it's
It
true.
is quite.
Elle, how do you feel about 2020?
Yeah. I feel like connection was a word, but also calibration, like recalibration.
Yeah.
Just in terms of like, what is actually important to me? What do I want to intentionally spend my time doing? Who do I want to spend my time with? In and amidst like all the anxiety and stress, what brings me joy? So like, what is the stuff that like makes me happy? And like, when can I decide that like I am allowed to feel sad, bad, mad, angry, upset, frustrated, and that's okay? Whereas before, like the self-talk was like, no, you just gotta like push it down. It's like you said, there's nothing else to do, so you gotta sit there with your feelings and then recalibrate, and then go, okay, now I have this new information and new process of like seeing the world. How am I gonna like intentionally continue to live that out in like every facet and not feel bad about the feelings that I have? So that was 2020 for me.
Wow.
It was also a lot of like, I had a lot of travel plans. I was like ready. I was like going to LA and San Francisco, and I was gonna go to a bachelorette in Seattle. There's gonna be drag queens and everything. And then I was like, I'm going to Calgary and do all the things. And then like, I was really looking forward to like expanding my horizon in that regard. Like, again, 2020, new decade, blah blah blah.
Yes.
And then this happened. So it's like, I feel like the connection helped, like being able to see people and what they're doing across the world, but it was really hard as well to like take on like that grief as well, and take on like the collective unknown. So 2020 is a roller coaster.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think for me it was weird. I think for me, I ended 2019 actually pretty low. I had a really rough end of the year. And so I think for me, I never actually entered the year of like 2020 is going to be my year, because it just entered low. Like it ended low, entered low. And so I was just kind of like, there's a lot of things going on, like work-wise and like different relationships. And I was just like, So when things were happening, like I actually did end up getting really sick. And so then I was like in my house for like isolated for like 2 months. So then it's like on top of that, I was like already alone and sick. So it was just like adding on. So I think I just entered it like, And so when like things started to like kind of open up and there was like the random joy moments of like TikTok or whatever, and then it's like, okay, like I got to find like the little joys in things, and then like we were always gaining kind of momentum, but then like when people like rediscovered Blackness or unlocked Blackness in the world, I think that also like awakened me into being like, oh, like where are we going with Black Women Connect Vancouver? Like I think it reignited like a vision for it, and so in some ways it was like exciting because then I got to be like, okay, we can like go somewhere, you know, with this, and like, yeah, it's a moment of whatever, but it's like I can actually sit here, reflect, where do we want to go, like what's our mission, what's our vision, are we sticking to it, are we moving with integrity, like all these things. And so I think for me it was like a rechecking of myself, but it's still the same thing. It's like when so much is happening in the world, I still get like I think I'm an empath, and so I just like take everything on, and so I had to limit my time because there's moments where I just like lay in bed and be like, yes, yeah, like it was just too much information for me, and I had to like tell people like changing like what I take in social media, like the people I follow and stuff, and I was just like, send me happy videos, like send me this, like I want it, yeah, like I was just like, I don't want to see sad things in the world because I know this already, like before 2020 I knew this already, and I was still doing the same thing. It's just like I don't want to see like more of it. So that was, I think it was an interesting year for me, I think, in that way. So I kind of had a weird balance of like finding joy this year. Yeah, like being present was more my thing. Yeah. So I never entered this year being like,
it was more like I need to find joy. I need to get. I need to rise up of the. Off of this,
so for me it was a little different. Yeah.
For me, in terms of 2020, it's funny because I think on my main life, kind of on like just here, nothing really changed. I didn't stop going to work. I still was going into the office, although because I'm a manager of counseling services at a nonprofit. Majority of my counselors stayed home just because of that. But I have my offices downstairs and stuff, so I didn't really stop. So on that, like looking out from the world, my world didn't really change except for my kid stayed home from school, which was a different me having to navigate how to do homeschool while still working and stuff, which actually did work out. So, but like it was just the outside of like not being able to see friends and having to wear a mask and like, I was wanting to travel this year. I was wanting to go to Australia like later on. I had planned to do a lot of training in different modalities for counseling. And I already had it on my calendar. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this one this time. And so it wasn't even far travel. It was literally Calgary and Seattle. Right? And it was at those times. And I'm like, okay, in April, I'm going to go to this and do this to Seattle. I'm going to go twice to Seattle. Like, and it just stopped. So in that way of not being able to do the extra stuff is how my life changed a little bit more. And also trying to, like I said, homeschool a kid who's 13. He's amazing. He's a beautiful, brilliant kid, but it was kind of navigating how much I had to like walk beside him to do the work and those kind of things. So those were the slight things. But yeah, I wanted to travel even just to study, a thing called lifespan or accelerated resolution therapy. Exactly. I was so excited. Like how, everybody's like, I'm great going to go to Hawaii. I'm like, I'm happy to do lifespan. But, so those were the things. But I think in terms of, just stopping and saying, okay, what does life look like now that I'm not traveling or not doing this? Or I'm around the family more, like what we had to stop, like you say, and calibrate and actually sit in whatever was happening and not be distracted by world stuff.
Yeah, it's a good point you made about like the family aspect though too, because it's like I think my family, like we're spread apart, and I live close to my parents here and I have sisters out east, but we actually made more effort to connect with each other because it's like, I live close to my parents, but it was like, I still would FaceTime them and stuff. And like, but like we grew closer. We made intentional calls of like, this week we're meeting at this time. And I thought that was really nice.
That's good.
So like, what are some of the things that you did as a family that you noticed, like maybe, like did you set out intentional times to...
The thing is, I live in my parents' basement.
Right.
I rent from them.
Yeah. Okay.
So we're always together. So again, that's the thing that didn't change. You were, quarantined. You couldn't see stuff.
Right.
I was quarantined
with them,
just in my basement, so everybody else was upstairs. Like when I came back from Virginia, I had to quarantine for 2 weeks.
Right.
And my kid was already been taken care of by my parents, so he was just upstairs, and that was my quarantine.
Yeah.
But I was still around people, right? My family's close anyway, so it's kind of like we talk every day, siblings and stuff. Even if I'm I went to school in Virginia, so even when I was there, I was talking to my dad every day. So
Yeah.
that didn't really change. It was more just like we were always together as opposed to having other people out. But I hear from people, it's two sides of the coin. Some people, because of the closeness of being in with their family, it was horrible for them. They were having troubles, especially stay-at-home moms who were trying to juggle, like stay-at-home moms. I'm just like,
truly.
I cannot do it. And they had multiple kids of different ages who had to do this. Like, I just like, I'm in awe of those people to have been able to do that, and plus having to work. And then on the other side of the coin, we had a lot of people that said this was the best thing that could have happened, like you, right? That it made them closer together. Yeah. Right. So for me, it was just the same thing. My kid's awesome anyway, even without quarantine, we're always together, you know? And so, but yeah, it was just a time to see what happens when you can't control anything. 2020 showed everybody you cannot plan. You can plan, but you can't control anything, right? And so it's wild.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's the sound effect for 20.
Podcast over. We're done.
Somebody said that was just 2020.
Oh god.
If we could do, what is it, ASMR, but like as a GIF or whatever.
Yes.
2020. 2020 for me was, I want to say neutral, because I had a lot of really like down times, and then I had some really high times as well. I think the biggest thing for me was having an opportunity to like really see what would happen if I took on my projects and like actually delved a little bit deeper and focused on them. Fortunate enough to have a partner that has a really good job. Actually, when I got laid off, they were giving all of them a raise. Whatever. I was just like, fantastic.
Right.
You got this.
God, you're telling me something? All right.
Exactly. I don't even need serve. No, I'm good. And so being in that way was really great, but I've been here for just 4 years, and I've worked my whole time being here because I was solely dependent on myself. And so that was weird for me to take a back seat and to kind of learn what taking a break is, to kind of learn what not working 40 hours a week looked like or felt like, and, you know, not having work people, but also environment not changing, because due to COVID, I started not going outside, and I was just in the house and moving from the office to the couch to the bedroom to this. I was like, I'm kind of getting bored of this now. But a lot of it was anxiety around other people. I don't know if anyone else experienced this, but in the beginning of COVID, when we got shut down and everything, and we had to start wearing masks and all of that, I feel like the messaging, or maybe the way I absorbed the messaging, was like, don't be near another person. And so I started distrusting everybody. I was just like, what are you
Don't talk close to me. Why are you breathing on me?
And I'm just walking them on, I'm like, get away from me. Just like that weird, and I'm judging people like, is he cough? Is he wearing a mask? I can't see what that is. Exactly. So it really built up a lot of anxiety around social gatherings. And I'm interested in seeing what this means for like our interpersonal skills moving forward, if it's going to grow and enhance them, or if it has in some way diminished them, because we're losing practice with each other physically, but we're getting it virtually. So
that's right.
I don't know. 2020 has been an experimental year, but I would have rather done without it.
done without
just to let you know, like I could have skipped this one.
I could have
looked past it, and
2022 could have been the time when I started my creative project. You know what?
Exactly. Yeah.
No. Okay. So my thing is like, you know how like you said life didn't change like on the surface.
Yeah.
And like you because of like COVID, you lost your job or whatever. It's funny because everyone's like, "This is the best time. I got the time off," and I'm like, I'm not jealous.
I got busy.
But I got busier, and for me, I was like, I kind of just wish I got like a beat. Like it was such a huge transition, going through this novel thing worldwide altogether. And having some people being like, okay, they were forced to take a break, and some people were like not happy about it, some people were like really grateful, but I'm like, I kind of wish I got a forced break just for like a minute, because my mental health went crazy, And I don't know if it's like the strong Black woman like trope that we like have to endure, but like I just was just like, okay, I gotta keep going. Yeah. But like looking at my friends being like, I kind of wish I could take a little bit of a break because everything just seems to be piling up. And then again, the strong Black woman trope being like, yes. Yeah.
I'm
tired, you know what I mean? Like I'm gonna do all the things, and it's like all of these like I'm spinning a little bit. So like 2020, it was like the recalibration, but like just recognizing that like I also have to be intentional about what I'm allowing in.
Yes.
And finding that those little like spaces and like pockets of like rest and peace and like taking advantage of it and not just filling it with stuff.
That's right.
Because I feel like I'm a person who likes to fill empty holes. It's like, oh, there's a space, let me just fill it with a thing. And then like 2 weeks later, I have this mental breakdown. I don't know why that happened.
Out of the blue.
Out of the blue. Like, I got so busy, and I don't know, like we're going into 2021, what does that even mean? Like, I just feel like 2020 is going to extend forever. We're going to have like 5 years of 2020.
We're like at 2028?
2020. Yeah, absolutely.
What year is it? 2020X?
Yeah. Like, it's just, I feel like I need to be more intentional about having that time and like being okay and not having to justify it, but like feeling validated in it. I mean, like, I can say no and I can not be busy. I'm not being lazy about it.
Yes.
We have to look at it in the mind frame or mindset of health, right?
Yeah.
The things that we do, if we overextend ourselves, we are not doing. We're not taking our health into account.
No.
And so sometimes we forget about mental health and emotional health the way we do physical health. You wouldn't jump in front of a bus.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
To get hit because you're like, I know that's going to hurt me, right? But you are jumping in front of a bus with all this stuff when you say yes. Yeah. That's the same amount of force on your body but it's emotional and mental. And so we forget to say, you know what? I wouldn't hurt myself physically, so why am I hurting myself emotionally and mentally and even spiritually, right? And again, take into account that Black girl trope. It's because our ancestors who are women, they're always working and they never complain. And so we feel that if we need rest, it means it's something wrong with us. As opposed to if we need rest, it's because we're human.
Yeah.
Right? So we have to give ourselves grace, and we have to, and I'm not just preaching to you, I'm telling this to myself.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, I have all these things under my belt, and people are like, how do you do all this stuff? And sometimes you're like, sometimes you feel like if I don't say yes, then I'm being bad or I'm being lazy, you know, as opposed to if I say no, it's because I need to protect myself.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why sometimes I'm very lazy. Like I will just come home and just it's 5 o'clock and I'm just like, okay, I'm just gonna go change, wash my face, and just chill in my bed. And that's cool. Like that's okay, because if you need it, you need it. You know?
Absolutely. And I kind of feel like we need to move away as like a society of like using this word lazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's used on some populations and not on others. And like, we know what we're talking about. You know what I mean?
That's right.
And for like Black women, it's like we need to move away from being like, oh, I'm just being lazy and I'm just having a lazy day. It's like, no, I'm actually working to rest.
Yes.
And like the nap ministry on Instagram.
Yeah.
I love the bishop.
Sorry?
So there's this account run by the bishop of the nap ministry, and she's like, rest is like an act of resistance, and like it's work to rest because we want to constantly fill and do the work for the community and do the work for people and do the work for ourselves. And it's like, yes, and also you have to recalibrate yourself before you can pour out. And like, you know what I mean? So it's like, I want to stop using that word like for me. And that's not like again, I'm preaching. I was just hearing you and I was like, why do we say lazy?
I love
like,
that.
We come home from this busy day.
Yes.
And we need to decompress.
Right.
That's not lazy. That's like
so
actually productive. Because if we don't do that, the productivity of the rest of the days is going to be
exactly.
It is.
And I love you pointing that out as well, because I use that word all the time. But I also own it, not in a sense that I know that I'm lazy, but I'm just like, no, I'm going to be lazy today.
Yes.
But I love how we have to say that, like, no, I'm just going to rest today.
Yeah.
What are you doing today? Nothing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm doing nothing.
Yeah.
And it's not laziness, because I know I'm not lazy.
Yeah.
And I just love, because you have the words that you speak as well are very powerful. So yeah. So thank you so much for even bringing that up, right?
Yeah.
Like in terms of saying that. But
You definitely cast a spell with your voice, whether it's setting your intentions,
That's right.
whether it's in an argument with people.
Yes.
That's why I don't trust people when they go like to the extreme in terms of being belligerent in an argument. I'm like, hold up. Hold up. In your body,
Yes.
you are
It's too
storing
much.
that information to lash it out at me at some point. And I think about this when I think about myself too, and a way for me to try and recalibrate and to try and shift my language is to shift my conversation with myself.
Yes.
And so,
Yes.
when I'm criticizing myself, I like to then start saying it out loud to hear it. Because once you hear how critical you are, you're like, A, this is ridiculous, and B, who is living inside of me? This is crazy.
And you would never say that to your friend.
Yeah.
No.
That's
You would
exactly what I was saying.
Never say any
No.
of that stuff to your friend. And like, why is it that we're okay with it? Like berating and harming ourselves.
Or
and
you wouldn't
such,
let
like,
your friends say it to themselves.
No,
as
exactly.
well.
Yeah.
We say it to our own selves. What?
It's
That's
wild
human.
that like
That's human.
we've been like socialized and conditioned that that's okay. That's an okay thing. That's the way that we motivate ourselves. We like hype ourselves up and be like, like you can be better and It's like I can be better, but also like there's also capacity.
Yeah, tough love,
And,
right?
and there's also but there's also compassion on ourselves.
And I always say that, like, in terms of compassion, grace. Just give yourself some grace. We don't give ourselves enough grace if we make a mistake or if we fall. You know what I mean? We're just like, oh, I'm so stupid. No, you're not.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to fail at this, or I'm going to, quote unquote, fall short of this. You woke in the morning and said, I'm going to try. And so if we do, quote unquote, fail, we have to look at failure in a different way, because, so I spent 10 years specializing in parenting as a counselor, right? So everything I think about is in terms of metaphors or, illustrations. But when a child is just learning to walk, they don't wake up and say, I hope I don't fall. They literally just, teeter. And if they fall, they get back up again without any judgment, without saying, oh, it's so stupid. Why couldn't those legs hold me? They literally fall and then they'll get right back up. And so I tell people, whether I'm counseling them, coaching them, even in terms of parenting, first of all, sometimes babies will fall, stand up and fall, and they're like, okay, I'm ready. I'm okay right now.
Yes.
I'm gonna chill. I need rest. I'm trying, right? So that's the thing we need to do.
Yeah.
As well as they fall, they don't do anything but try to stand back up again. And so that's what we need to do, is recognize that, we're not always going to be standing. We're not always going to be walking or flying. We're going to have to come down. What are we going to do then when we do come down, right? Well, what have we learned? Have our legs gone a little bit stronger to be able to take that extra step? And just knowing, as human beings, we're not always going to be perfect. So why are we berating ourselves for not being perfect, right?
I think or at least what came up for me as you said that, and when Al said you wouldn't say that to your friend, I think it's also because we practice the scenarios in our heads with ourselves so many times that we're expecting perfection by the time that we do it. Whereas if your friend tells you that they have an idea, you're hearing that for the first time. And so you give them all the room to grow, to learn, to fail, to do whatever. But for yourself, because you've been thinking about it for 10 weeks or whatever, you're like, this has to culminate in this. But it's all brain work. The brain doesn't really do anything in terms of the physical reality. Like, it can't build the house or build the business for you. It just stays in your head, really, and takes up a lot of space, and is very heavy.
It reminds me of a book called Mindset by Carol Dweck. I think that's what it is. Yeah, and it just talks about the different types of mindset, growth mindset and fixed mindset. And I think, especially in this society, we are raised with a fixed mindset, especially if you have teachers that kind of instill that in you, in the terms of like, no, you're not good enough, or, or even in the way that we have been raised sometimes. If you make a mistake, we're berated. And so we kind of don't want to try anymore, because we do think, oh, I'm so dumb. Why didn't I try harder? and sometimes in the African society, like 94, where's the last 5 points,
I was just thinking that right
those
now.
kind of things. So we feel like if I tried, and I think I tried the hardest and I didn't get it and I failed, then I shouldn't try anymore because I don't want to fail again, right? Whereas growth mindset is literally everything is a learning thing, knowing that if this is what I want to do, I'm going to practice and practice. Same as artists, you see sometimes on like TikTok and Instagram where they're like, this is where it started, and they were like stick figures, and then this is where it ended, and you're like, whoa, right? That's what growth mindset is, knowing that you don't have to be greatest at everything, but you just keep on trying and pushing and knowing that you're going to get somewhere, right? So that's a book that everybody should read as a person as well as a parent. It's not a parenting book at all. It's just like, understanding the difference between those two types of mindsets is really good.
As we think of like 2020 and like we've been talking about like setting intentions and all the things we've been doing, what are some of the ways, I guess, moving forward, like as we're saying, like we think it's going to end, but what if it gets worse, So we talked about the growth mindset. So what are ways that we can actually set intentions in this year going forward? Like we've just experienced all this stuff now. So what are some of the things that you were like, wow, this worked? And what are some of the things that I'm going to try this next. Yeah, like this is like the next step of my growth for 2020.
So as you were saying the whole parenting, I think next steps for the rest of 2020, for however long that goes until, I would love to like learn how to reparent myself. Because I feel like there are so many like loops in my head that are like stuck from childhood.
Yes.
Not just from my parents, but like from like teachers and like that feed into this negative talking and like speech in my head.
Yes.
So I think that reparenting is like an intention that I really wanna tackle. Because I just feel like that, like you said, like words are huge.
Yeah.
And we have spent so much time not interacting with people in person and like doing it in our heads and like practicing that scenario over and over and over again. So it's like, why can't we practice reparenting over and over and over again, so then those loops can be filled with positive self-talk. I'm just recognizing, because I know I can catch myself and being like, oh, so mean, Al. Why would you say that to me? So be nicer. Have you heard a parent say that to their child? You're like, oh, social services.
Yes.
So why am I doing it to myself? So that's my intention. With like all the time that I have.
But it doesn't take so much time because we think all the time.
Yeah.
Right. One of the modalities I started training this year is emotion-focused family therapy. And when you were talking about that, it was just the basis of emotion-focused family therapy is essentially parenting by validating your child and their emotions and what they're going through. And I think we forget to do that with anybody, kids, and then we forget to do with ourselves, right? So if we're tired, we're instead of validating, man, yeah, it makes sense why you would be tired because you did this and you did this and you did that. We say, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm so tired. This is stupid. Like I should get up and do more work, right? So even if it doesn't take even if you're like, I don't have a lot of time, how can we validate our existence right now, right? In terms of how you're feeling. If you're upset with somebody, if you're tired, the validation is, man, you were tired, and this is why. And just sitting in that, and not judging it, right?
And I think that that's so important in 2020.
Yes.
Like, there's so many things that have happened, and it's okay to sit in it.
Yes.
And it's okay to, like, think on it, and then plan and set intentions for the time that's coming ahead, and then learn from what's happened in the past.
But it's also important that even if you made these goals and you didn't hit it, be okay and validate the reasons why you didn't hit it. I think sometimes people will just be like, what, you had so much time, 2020 allowed you to stay home, you should have gotten fit, you should have done this, and you should have eaten well. And like, honestly, you close your eyes and it's October and you're like, where did the time go? And you're already judging yourself because I'm not a size this and I didn't clean up my diet. No, man, we're still in a pandemic. So we have to be gracious to ourselves. We have to validate the reasons why maybe we didn't make these goals. And that's why it's so hard when we talk about making goals. I mean, that's important, but we also have to make sure we are healthy in all ways. And that's what I say. If you're going to make a goal, you got to make sure you have that foundation to make a goal and then also be able to follow through. Are we Is our brain healthy? Are we healthy physically, emotionally, spiritually, socially, and mentally? Are we there? If not, those are the things that we can control. Sometimes those big goals we can't get there because we actually haven't prepared ourselves to be able to get there in terms of sleeping well, eating well, and not even eating for body image, but eating for health. How is our brain? Are we taking care of our brain by sleeping, eating, drinking well, exercising, moving, praying if we do that, meditating, right? Those are the things that we can kind of like control. Then we can kind of make goals if we are healthy and have that foundation to do so. And it starts with validating ourselves and being gracious for the things that we maybe, on January 1st, we said we're going to do that we haven't done by now. Or when this pandemic closed us in, we can't judge ourselves if we are not where we thought we were going to be because we're still trying to navigate this world of a pandemic.
Yeah, that's interesting. And my question is to clarify. So would you say then in your explanation that goals are one thing and then the foundation kind of sets in as intentions or something? Because I feel like I can have a goal to be healthier.
Yeah.
So is that in the same regard, or is it like is there a difference? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, like, I think in terms of goals, sometimes we think of huge, big things. Like, by this time, I'm going to do this, and by this time, and we forget about the little trackings that we need to do to try to get to these big goals, right? And so what I'm talking about is just being mindful about the things that we can control. If you're saying, I want to eat better, then what does that mean, right? Because I think sometimes we go from 0 to 100. I'm going to eat better, so I'm just going to be on chicken and rice and vegetables all day long, and then we fail and we beat ourselves up, right? But the goal around the nutrition is like, okay, I can eat a whole big thing of Skittles in one sitting. So so what my goal would be, like, okay, maybe I will eat grapes before, but like eat grapes instead or something, or buy a small pack of Skittles, like something that's smaller than changing your whole entire mindset and life. Just the little things that you can control, because again, another metaphor is who are those brother and sister that in my head, no, it's like a nursery rhyme, that story where they got lost in the middle of the woods and then they Hansel and Gretel, right? Like, they wouldn't have been able to
hey, this is 2020. We're gonna be talking about dinosaurs. I don't know.
We never know.
You
We shouldn't
throw
talk about monsters,
in there. It's
right?
like, you know that
Who are those siblings?
meteors.
Yes, Willow and Jaden Smith. But I think about goals in we have the big goal, of course, but what are those little breadcrumbs that we can follow to recognize that we're actually taking steps to follow to the big goal? Do you know what I mean? Right? Like, we sometimes think, oh man, I have this big goal, and then we go for it and then we fail because we haven't planned, or we don't know exactly how we're going to get there, and then we beat ourselves up for making the big goal, as opposed to not recognizing the little steps that we might have made along the way, right? And so it's kind of like, yes, we can have real big goals, but what are the things then we can kind of control that and kind of track? And so in terms of tracking, right? Like, what are the little things that we can go to be like, man, I didn't get there, but oh shoot, I didn't even know about this and this and this. I forgot about this. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
I don't know if I'm making any sense. But
making it attainable.
Yeah.
Because it's like, in the time of like the pandemic, everyone's like, I made this, and people are like cooking and doing these things, and I was like, ugh. Same thing when I was like, I got busier, so I'm like, should I be adding? And then I got like more down on myself, and then I not suffer. I'm not gonna claim that, but I do struggle with like imposter syndrome.
Yes.
And mostly because it's like there's all these things going on, and so it's like you said, it's like if I don't feel like the goal that I set for myself, I didn't attain it at that moment, I'm like, well, maybe I'm not the right person for the job. They can find someone else. Like, they can find another leader. They can do this. Like, this person will be better without, like, you know, and it's like, and then I start, like, getting down on myself for that. And it's really something that I think that 2020 was really hard for me for that. And I always had to check myself. I'm like, okay, but if you weren't that person, then this wouldn't have happened, or this person wouldn't have met this person, or this, you know what I mean? But it's just like sometimes it's when I fail at something, then I feel like, oh, maybe I'm just not the right person. Like, just like I could just like step back, you know, like move to Hawaii, everything's gonna be fine. Yeah, like everyone will be good.
Think about it though, because we think about ourselves in one way, and other people look at us and be like, oh my gosh, you're amazing. Like, they'll look at you and be like, oh my gosh, you're amazing. You're executive director of this and that. And you're just like, and then we're like beating ourselves up, and they're just like, I want to be like you.
Exactly.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
and I'm like, I don't get it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you want to be
What do you see?
Yeah. But I think, let me go back to that question in terms of like, because I think I was saying two different things, right? I was saying, because a lot of people will say, you know, going into this year, how can we make goals? And I just say, take a step back before we make goals and first make sure we're healthy. That's what I was talking about, right? Like, make sure, like, are we there to be able to, create goals, and if we don't make them, still be healthy enough to keep on trying, right? Is our brain health there? And for me, right now, I'm doing this certification for brain, so everything is brain. But, like, because everything has an effect on our brain. Like, they can do scans and see your, you know, what your brain looks like depending on like how well you eat, if you're drinking too much, drugs and all that kind of stuff, right? So the things that we can control to make sure we're healthy are the little things like drinking enough water, trying to sleep. So creating goals around that can help to help you to achieve the bigger goals, right? So
yeah, it's like a process breakdown, I guess, to do that. I find that a lot of folks struggle with this. I don't struggle with it, but I think I struggle with over planning and like over preparing and like saying, oh, I have this big goal, and then I could have potentially 10 steps, but then I write in 30 steps because it's just such a big breakdown, and that's overwhelming. So how does one strike, and we don't have to have an answer for this, but I'm curious around how do we strike the balance between knowing if we're over planning the small pieces and almost distracting ourselves.
And that's
because
the thing.
We use that as that excuse.
That's exactly what it is, right? Why are we making all these steps? And it comes with sometimes the imposter syndrome thing, right? Because we're just like, okay, I don't know if I'm going to get there. So I'm just going to distract myself and make these steps. Oh, shoot, I didn't make it. Okay, I'm going to try again, right? So it's like being conscious and like recalibrating and saying, okay, why did I make all these steps? Can I cut it down to 10? Yeah, okay, let me try to do that. And again, it's just being conscious and giving ourselves grace and being aware of why we do things. There's always an underlying reason for something that we do, right? And being aware of, or something that we say. So just kind of being aware of it.
Awareness.
It's awareness.
That's what
it is all about awareness.
It really
is. Yeah, it's so true. I was actually, because I'm starting to do like neurofeedback for like my chronic pain and stuff, and just like even in our session it's the same thing. It's like she's like, what are you feeling? What are you sensing? And I'm like sitting there like, nothing.
Yeah,
like I was like, and then she's like, well, some people don't feel it. Like maybe just like stay in tune with them. Like, nothing.
Nope,
Yeah. And it was the same thing. It's like our brain just really does react on so many things. And like as much as I'm aware of my physical, sometimes obviously when you have chronic pain, you are aware of anything that's happening. But I think sometimes I'm not aware of how my brain responds, because when we did the scan, it's like you are suppressing so much. And she's like, this area, you're just suppressing all of it. It's because I've just learned to cope. Yeah. And I think it's the same. It's like when we set our goals, we set our intentions, it's like we've just some of the things we've learned to suppress.
Yes.
And then it's like, oh, you don't become aware that you're doing those things, because you're like, wait, why did I crash? And then it's like because you've learned to suppress all those other things that make you aware. And so I think for me I was like, oh, like that's a lot of things that I am learning too, of like, how do I not suppress the things I need to learn and actually fail at to get to where I need to be, either mentally, spiritually, or whatever, or physically. And it's very interesting.
It's very interesting. we have to just sit, like you said earlier, just sit in whatever it is, even if it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And forget. And we don't want to, right? So we make ourselves busy. But it is sitting in the discomfort and being comfortable in that, so you can create a new thing, right?
What are some steps you feel like you could take, like, as, like, I know we've talked about it, but, like, moving forward, like, we've had this conversation of, like, awareness and intention and all that, and it's like we've talked about the things that we all, like, kind of, like, process, but then, like, how do you move forward? Like, how would, like, I guess people watching or listening be like, okay, like, what's a takeaway?
Honestly, one of the most easy things is to just get more sleep, to be honest. To prep your body to be able to be more healthy is sleep. I don't think people get enough sleep. And water. I think that's so, I know it's such a weird thing to think, but like water and sleep, if you improve those two things, you will, it's like,
Good girl.
yes.
I feel much better. You're right. I'm about to go conquer the world. I'm about to go run for president. I'm ready. But no.
But
facts.
you know, like prepping your body physically to be able to take on anything emotionally, spiritually, mentally, relationally, socially, whatever it is that. Like, even when people talk about, I want to get fit, right? They think, the first thing they think is, I need to go to the gym. But if your sleep is not on point, if your eating's not on point, and if your water's not on point, you can do whatever you want. Genetics could help, but if you don't have that, then nothing's going to get you to that place that you need to be. But honestly, it's such a weird thing, because people will be like, oh, you know, they'll say, but honestly, if you sleep well enough and you drink well, things will start, you'll see things will start changing for you. That's why I'd say start. But I also think counseling is a really big thing that people don't, and I'm not just saying that because I'm a counselor. I think it allows you to, like you said, she was able to tell you that you were suppressing stuff, and you were like, this is just my everyday life. I didn't realize that, right? Counseling is very often scary for a lot of people, because you see the stereotypical lying on the couch telling my deepest, darkest secrets and all that. But honestly, counseling is just allowing you to become more aware of the things that we do, and why we're doing it. And it's such a healthy thing, because we forget that our brain is a part of our body, right? So we're going to go and check in, you know, let's say, go on a physical to the doctor because they're just going to make sure everything's good here. Why not we do that with our brain? It's still matter. It's still part of our body. It's a muscle. So how about we work that out? And it allows us to, if we can get past that stigma around mental health, and just get to the point of like finding somebody. And it doesn't have to be anybody. You don't have to just go and find the first counselor and say, I'm going to tell my deepest, darkest. It's like you literally will shop for somebody, because it's a relationship, right? I'm not going to just go out in the street and be like, let's be friends. I mean, it might work, but we also have to be compatible. So it's the same thing as with a counselor. You got to find somebody that fits. And even if it's like maybe 4, 5, 6 down the line, somebody that you can actually connect with and that will help you walk alongside you.
And research,
right?
Research their background.
Yes, research their background.
Topics they are specialized in.
Exactly. And then if you sit down with them and you're like, it doesn't fit, that's fine. You don't have to give anybody anything, right? You're looking for health for yourself. So somebody who fits, that you're going to be able to be comfortable with and grow with, and they're going to help transport. You're doing the transformation because you're the expert of you. They're just there to help you, right? And so for me, counseling is a big thing as well. You know, if there were the 2 things you need to do, 3 maybe, sleep, water, counseling, that will set you up for awesomeness, I think, in my opinion. And the cool thing now with 2020 is that you could do online counseling too. So it makes it a little bit more convenient and more comfortable. I mean, hopefully you wear pants, but you don't really have to. If you don't, I mean, not as a counselor, but as a client, if you don't wear pants, like, as long as you're not getting up, you're just comfortable, right? And that's the cool thing about it. But like brain health and mental health is so important, even though there is that big stigma. I think the stigma is getting a little bit smaller, because we're hearing more about even like some celebrities, like Taraji, what's her name? Taraji Henson. She has that the organization for that, and there are a lot of different organizations that are pushing for mental health, taking care of your mental health, especially within our own culture as Black people as well. So those are the 2 big things. You know, I think sometimes some people kind of come up with like beautiful acronyms and like do this. And I'm literally like, just drink water,
Yeah.
go to sleep early, go to sleep at 9, and find yourself a counselor. And if you can't, like sometimes, a lot of the counselors, especially within BC, they're covered, or psychologists, they're covered by medical. So if you have extended medical, I'm an RCC registered clinical counselor. There's a CCC. And then there's also like different like psychologists and stuff. It could be covered. There's some that may do a sliding scale if people are not able to do counseling, as well as just at the tip of our fingers is the internet.
Yeah.
So if there are, if there's times that it's not possible, then looking up things like mindfulness. There's so many apps. There are things on the internet, on YouTube, meditations kind of things. Right? Like if we can just focus on doing one thing for our mental health and then emotional health, physical health, spiritual health, and what was the last one? Mental, emotional, and social, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Because we're social beings, that will just take us to the next level of being able to improve our overall health. And that's my important, even within my own counseling, it's not just mental, it's everything. So we're going to try to see, where are you on all these things? Because even if one thing is great, you could be as strong as everything and the biggest muscles, but if your emotional health is shot, then it's going to have an effect, right?
Yeah, definitely. No, thank you for that. That was really good. Yeah, I feel like I just had a counseling session. I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna survive. Yeah, exactly. It's true. We will survive 2020.
But I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, we will. We have already.
Yeah.
We're surviving in it. As hard as it is, we are there. We've worked through it. It's, we're in October and it started, in January.
It's true.
And so, just being aware of what we can control and how we can do it. And if you can't do it on your own, friends, right? I have, my friend and I talk to each other. We encourage each other in terms of like working out or eating well. We're just making sure we're okay.
Yeah.
If we can't get, like I said, a professional to help in terms of counseling, have friends to help be accountable, right? Read books, watch podcasts, watch, YouTube things, listen to podcasts together, that kind of stuff. Because again, part of the health overview is social as well. We're social beings.
Yeah.
We were not created to be alone.
Yeah.
And of course, COVID has not made that easy, but what can we do in terms of reaching out, video chat and those kind of things. So making sure that we're healthy in the best ways we can to be able to face whatever is happening. Hopefully it's not it's not going to get worse than this, but if it does, how are we then creating that foundation of health to be able to deal with the craziness that whatever the next few days may bring?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, that was awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I don't even
We're like deep breathing.
I don't know, man. My thing is just health, and that's what I said. It's just like all those aspects of health that make us a person. If we can just do even one little thing, right? I'm gonna eat an apple a day. I'm gonna drink this amount of water. I'm gonna sleep 1 more hour a day. I'm gonna phone my friend and talk with her today. And I'm going to, and in terms of spirituality, if you're not a Christian, not everybody is spiritual as well. For some people is getting into nature or meditating. So that's the spiritual, because again, we are spiritual beings as well, whether or not you believe in whatever God. I'm a Christian, so that's me. I'll pray and read my Bible and meditate in Him. But if you're not a Christian, or if you don't have any organized religion, what fills your spirit?
Yeah.
People just, sit in, like I said, outside in nature or listen to music. So those are the things that we can control. If we can control a little thing of those things, we'll see, one little thing in all those aspects, we'll see a difference in how we face this world and face whatever Rona is going to give us.
Yeah.
Rona. The Rona.
Yeah.
Rona.
We immediately jumped to like nickname basis for
Yes.
it was like
Rona.
2 weeks and
That's
it
why
was
I
like
love black
Rona.
people. Black people
Rona's
be like
out
a
here.
Rona. And, I'm one of 2 black people in my office, right? And so there was time I said that. They're like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "Coronavirus." They're like, "Oh, that's hilarious." They're like, "What is this Rona?" I was like,
my God.
Let me explain.
It's the blend for me.
Yeah, it's like Black people, I just love we can make jokes out of everything, and
know
it just
what?
makes sense, and it's
And
hilarious.
that was the joy to see it. As much as it was so chaotic, it was exciting to see people make that. You know what I mean? It was it was so fun. Yeah.
You talked about TikTok, man, and that's the thing. TikTok is hilarious.
Yeah, I know.
And we share.
I know we share it all the time.
On Insta. But I mean, I want to bring it back to Elsa. Do you remember do you know who Elsa is?
Yeah, from the movie?
No.
Oh no, Majimbo.
Yes. I love that she got
so
big with the Rona.
Yeah, it's so true. It made,
Yeah, a lot of people did well on TikTok and Instagram. One of my friends, Caitlin, as well. She's the one that was did that thing everybody at a Zoom meeting. Did you see that?
Oh, yeah.
Where she's just yes, thank you, Martha. That was, But people did good things within Rona, and that's the cool thing. Yes, as far as COVID kind of changed the world, but also I think there was a lot of joy that came out of it because people had to do stuff.
It's true. It's so true. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
It was a pleasure to have you.
Fun.
And also, we didn't even talk about it because you just recently joined our board.
I did.
So it's also, if anyone doesn't know, look at her bio on our website.
Yes.
But thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much.
to
It was
have this
fun
conversation
to be
with
here.
you. Yeah. Anybody else have final words?
No.
That was it.
I keep reaching for my water and I'm I jump in, I need to fill this, and I'm going to take a nap.
Yes.
Yes. That's my big thing now is taking naps. So my takeaway is naps.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to be napping a lot more.
Yeah.
If you have the time, nap.
Yeah. I definitely am a nap person.
Yeah. That's why when we were little, I'm like, why did I fight my parents so much?
Yeah.
And then when I try to put down my niece and nephew, or my niece, when she's I don't want, my little niece when she's 3, I don't want to, how did she say, I don't want to nap. I'm like, child, I look at her, I'm like, you want to nap. It's fine, I don't want to nap. And then she'll fall asleep, I'm like, I told you wanted to nap.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And I guess cheers with our mugs. Yes. Cheers to
Corona.
another.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode. It's always amazing to get an opportunity to chat with these lovely ladies. So if you're looking to follow us off of the podcast and you're looking to catch up with some of the content that we have, you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and on YouTube, all at Black Women Connect Vancouver. And we also have a website for you at blackwomenconnectvancouver.com, which is where you can sign up for our mailing list and our newsletter so you can keep updated with our growth and all of the other events that we have planned for you. Catch you later. Bye.